Hi, thank you for being part of the Heroes Economy Show, the place where change makers and social entrepreneurs come to expand their impact and get even more inspired to make a difference. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm excited to share with you the Center for Social Innovation. It's an incredible organization based in Toronto, Canada. It's a co-working space and community and a launchpad for people who are truly changing the world. I'm going to be introducing our Director of Culture for the Center of Social Innovation, Adhil. He is an incredible individual. We met in New York City, and he's going to be talking about the center and how it's making a significant impact to all of these change makers that are really coming together to foster social innovation. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the center. So it essentially provides members with the tools that they need to accelerate their success and to amplify their impact. And together, it's really about building a movement. It's for for-profit companies, for nonprofits, for entrepreneurs, for artists and activists. They really want to work across sectors, and it's really about creating a better world together. So the best person to share more information about it is Adhil. So I'll let you take over the show, Adhil. So tell us a little bit more about CSI.
Great, and thank you very much for having me and for that very warm introduction. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So I guess there's lots to say about CSI, and probably the best place to start is to just explain to you why we started, as it very much reflects who we are today.
Yes.
CSI started actually just about 10 years ago. At the time, 5 individuals, all with respective not-for-profits, found that it didn't make financial sense for them to be living or working in isolation from one another. You know, at the time, one was working in a coffee shop, one was working at home, another was working in some weird underground bunker type office space, and they thought to themselves, you know, if we worked in the same space, we would be able, from an economic perspective, to leverage the economies of scale that comes with that.
Yes.
And be able to pay rent together and deal with the coffee machine and deal with the photocopy machine together. But more importantly, what would happen if we shared our experiences and our networks and our learnings? At the time that we started 10 years ago, these types of things would seem relatively obvious today, was fairly nascent. This idea that a bunch of nonprofits working in the same space, most people thought that they would compete for the same dollars, energy, and time. Whereas our theory was, if you brought different organizations in the same space, that's where social innovation can emerge, because it's their respective and individual perspectives and experiences as how they look at the same problem through different lens is where we get innovative ideas and strategies.
Yes.
So the Center for Social Innovation really started on the fundamental, simple concept of sharing. CSI has published 4 books where we've attempted to open source what we've learned to share with others, as there's certainly some unique findings through that, through our own experiences. But you know, a validation of our success is just generally, I believe, a validation of a much larger trend that's happening as it relates to people's desire to work together and recognize that to solve the problems and the challenges and address the opportunities that are in front of us, we have to work together.
Yes.
It's fundamentally up to us to work together and to find ways to collaborate if we're truly going to create the change that we seek to create.
The mindset of collaboration, in many ways, is now being embraced so much more, and it's exciting because, again, we're doing something that oftentimes is very new, or it's disruptive, and it's very different to the way society operates or the mainstream operates, and so it is really important to have those support mechanisms in place. And so I'll sort of segue into really a question that I ask as part of our show. How do you feel that CSI is really part of the solution?
I'm really happy you asked that question, because I was dying to follow up to this collaboration point.
Yes.
It will answer your question by saying we like to all talk about collaboration, and my feeling has always been, but how do you do it?
Yes.
Everyone suggests we got to collaborate, we got to work together, but that answer as to how, we understand the why, but the how that happens and what does that look like has always been very ambiguous to me, and that's what I actually joined CSI. I was a member of their community. 3 years ago, I had a technology startup, and I was so attracted to how CSI fosters collaboration. And it was my experience as being a member of CSI, I eventually became so ingrained and enchanted by what was happening in the community that I found a way to join the CSI team. So, so why? And as I mentioned, why? Because of CSI's approach to collaboration and how that relates to being part of the solution. But I'll give you a really tactical example. We organize something called the Summit, the CSI Summit, in all of our physical spaces. And the idea of the Summit is that if you come, we organize 4 hours of facilitated exercises, and you walk in the room and you say, I'm awesome at this, and my needs are this. And the point of these exercises is that we, over the course of the day, figure out who's the complement to that. Who needs what you're awesome at? Or
Yes.
who is awesome at what you need? And we create a series of exercises with the idea that we can matchmake. And so, how do you actually foster collaboration? Well, the first step is putting out there what people need to collaborate on and where people are strong and where people need support. It sounds so obvious and so basic, and yet it doesn't actually happen very often. Whether people are afraid to put out there what they don't know very well, or whether we humbly don't want to say what we're awesome at, or whatever it might be. Just that simple exercise in itself and that way of thinking we've seen so many things manifest just from that. And so CSI is really great, in my humble opinion.
Beautiful. I love this.
At doing things like convening groups through things like summits and peer circles and constellations. We're great at convening. We convene people in our workspaces. We convene people. We have office. We have meeting and event spaces, and we host events, and we encourage other people to throw events in our spaces. And so we're great at convening and curating your audience to come into space. One interesting thing to note about CSI is that everyone who actually works at CSI must apply and in their application explain how their work is related to making the world a better place.
Wonderful.
And we don't judge projects, we just assess whether we share the same values. And what that means is that our foundation of our community is shared purpose. And we ensure that everyone in our community has this shared purpose because it's so critical to building strong communities with having a common factor.
Without question. That's wonderful.
Great. So thank you. So I mean, it's also dicey. I mean, how does an organization like us be both open and open to opportunities and to people, but have this kind of exclusive bend to it? And it's a fine line that we're constantly navigating. But just to finish that point. Our way of being part of the solution is to be a convener, to foster connectivity and build social capital, and ultimately to inspire people by our actions, and particularly and especially by the stories of the people who work at CSI, the not-for-profit, the aspiring entrepreneur, whatever they might be. Our hope is that they create change, and our objective is to help them in doing that and then to share that story.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And it's a testament. I mean, you have a wonderfully vibrant social space, social innovation space, and a lot of social entrepreneurship activity going on in Toronto. And I would attest that CSI is such an instrumental part of that. And so I just want to, I want to commend you for that. I think it's wonderful, and I think the work you're doing is so necessary. If we could have it in every city, it would be fabulous. But I know you've got a lot of great resources online, so I will encourage people to visit your website. We'll be providing some information on where they can access access the site and different tools. One final question for you, Adhil. You've worked with so many amazing people, and I know you've got probably hours of stories you can share with us. I'd like you to share with us maybe the single most important piece of advice that you can offer to a young social entrepreneur that's just starting out, or even someone that's in the midst of their enterprise and they're trying to scale it and trying to grow it and really trying to expand the impact that they're making. What advice would you give to them?
It's a great question, and it's a challenging one because, of course, there are so many things one would like to share with someone, be it starting or whatever stage that they're at their respective business. And so, what I always come back to, and I think it applies to one regardless of what stage that they're at. Is to having a very clear understanding of why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in it. Perhaps yourself and people who watch your show know of this notion of how to start with why. And it's something that Simon Sinek is a business thinker that I first actually got a chance to meet him and learn about this notion of why we start with why first, and how understanding that raison d'être is important as it relates to what you do, how you do it, and how you ensure that you continue to do it. Entrepreneurship is crazy. It is hard work. It is you are fighting against every obstacle, and most often when we see people being unable to continue their work, it's because they don't know or they've lost their sense of why.
Yes.
It's their source of inspiration, their hope. It's their sense of rage, what gets them going. Mm-hmm. And so if there was one thing I had to say to someone and one question I had to ask, and I often do when I have that opportunity, it's why.
I love that. That is brilliant advice, and I can't agree more. I mean, interestingly enough, my other half, Trevor, founded a company. What is your why? And it's all about really uncovering the essence. And we discussed this before, that in my experience, and obviously your experience as well, a lot of social entrepreneurs, we start a business that really wants to make an impact based on the story of our lives. There's some sort of theme or something that happened when we were younger that really imprinted us and made us feel like we needed to do something. We don't realize till later on in the journey. It's like, wow, we have this epiphany. Well, this shaped me, and this is really what I think I should be doing. So the why is just absolutely crucial. I agree, and it really guides you through those tough times. When you are against all odds, and particularly in this space when we're trying to change the world. And so that's brilliant. Thank you. And I think most people will agree with that. And also, if they haven't gone down the path, we really encourage you. Get clear on what your why is. It's an essential piece to building a sustainable enterprise in this space.
And the beautiful thing, it's so easy.
Yeah.
So often to solve the challenges in front of us, or to start a company, or to do whatever it is, there's questions as to how do I do it, and this feeling of insurmountable odds. But to start with why is so simple and yet so effective at the same time. So, Lisa, I know that was your last question, but would you mind that I actually I finish off on one last point I wanted to share with the audience?
Not at all. You've got so much to share, so please go right ahead, Adhil. This is great.
Yes, I'll try to limit my gab. But the thing I want to share, and I often do, whenever I have the opportunity to speak to groups, is, CSI is, and the work that we're doing is we've been very successful. Especially in recent years, we've opened up 3 new spaces in the last 3 years. On every facet, we're growing. But our success is not necessarily just due to what we're doing. It is truly, in my mind, reflective of a much larger movement at play. And that movement is about people having that sense of responsibility that it is up to us to solve the world's challenges and to create the world that we want to see in front of us. And so whether it is with CSI or with somebody else, I'm so filled with hope and excitement and optimism because we're seeing globally people in all facets and all levels of work recognizing that we all have to play a part, and that it's not just the responsibility of government and business, but it is responsibility of individual citizens too, and all of us to work together to change the world.
Oh,
So I'd love to just remind everyone that we're just one piece of what is a much larger and exciting movement at play.
it's beautiful, and I agree with you. The tide is rising, and to be a part of facilitating that is exhilarating for us. And I couldn't agree more. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really important point. And it's also inspiring to know that we can make a difference, and it does start at the individual level. And when we bind together, it becomes a very powerful force. So, Adil, I love the work that you're doing. You're an amazing individual. I'm sure I'll have you back on the show. I'd love for you to share some stories of some things that have happened within the space. You've had so many incredible people that you've been working with. And I also encourage people that are watching the show today, please send us your questions, join in on the conversation. We'd love your feedback. If there's anything that you would like to know, you'd like to know more about CSI, let us know. We really appreciate having you as part of the community. So, Adil, thank you. For the sake of time, I know we wanted to keep this succinct today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your gifts, and we really, really appreciate having you.
My pleasure, and thank you very much for all the kind words. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You have a wonderful day.